Hey, folks, we're back at it again. It's Lindsey Huddleston with the SPS Edge, here for the SPS Edge Show with my great co-host, Mr. Terry McCord Jr. Want to thank Orlando Watkins, who's doing an excellent job with helping us get our message out, not only throughout the state of Michigan, but throughout Canada and other parts of the world. And we want to thank John, the basketball insider, who will be joining us later in the show. But we're back at it again on this new platform. Shout out to StreamYard and the great resource they provide. And Terry, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It's been a good week. Just settling down with school, and other than that, just keep my head down and keep things rolling, keep working hard like the usual. So,
well, I have to tell you, man, I want this to be heard loud and clear to everyone who has ears. You, Orlando, and also John have brought so much to this show and this platform. You've given it more life than it had when it started. We're getting great reviews all throughout. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing. You got a little pep in your step because you gave old man John a beat down, man, with the decisions and the calls you called. John's got to get on here to defend himself a little later, man. Why you like that?
The Ohio State one, I knew that Lydell, he was Mr. Basketball in Illinois two years in a row. And, it's always something about going back to the team, your hometown team, going back to play them. So I figured it out before the game started. I did some little more digging to see if I made the right decision. But, when in doubt, go with my Buckeyes. We'll see if I pick them later today, though.
Yeah, you're going to make John dig into his bag of tricks, so you better be careful. That's a wise man. So let's talk about what we're going to go over today before we get to the Big Ten picks at the latter part of the show. We're going to talk about the AFC and NFC championships coming up. We talk about some big games. We're going to have some end the discussion about the GOAT, whether it's going to be considered Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, of course. Then we talk about Harden, KD, and Kyrie. And actually, when we put this run list together, we didn't have the information that we had regarding Kyrie Irving, and we'll talk about that in a moment regarding his press conference. And I'll get to share my thoughts. And I want to get your thoughts on that too. The Warriors versus Lakers. The Warriors matched up against the Lakers recently, and they came out with the dub. The Dubs got the dub, and we can have that ongoing conversation. Does that mean the Lakers better watch out, or is it just, hey, regular season compared to the playoffs? MSU on a 3-game postponement. I thought I'd be getting ready to see them match up against the Fighting Illini this Saturday, but they will not be matching up because of COVID restrictions based on numerous other players, and also come to find out other people in the program outside of just players, including a graduate assistant, a well-known graduate assistant, as well as a trainer. We'll talk about that. And then we got the NCAA tournament dates. Those dates have come down. It's going to be an all-Indiana NCAA tournament. They're going to have a number of locations throughout the state of Indiana, more so central Indiana. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing in Indiana but the central part. Indianapolis, everything else is cornfield. That's no cap, but that's the truth. And then we'll get to our great Big Ten picks, and we have John, our basketball insider, come join us. It's always great having him on and what he shares, his knowledge. And I think he keeps you sharp too, Terry, because he makes you dig into your research to find out. So with that, man, give me your take on this upcoming AFC and NFC championship. Give me your take on what those divisional games were like and what you think this weekend's game is going to produce.
Well, the divisional round, I thought, the Browns played well, but I thought they missed out on some opportunities. Although Mahomes went out, you never want to wish an injury on anyone. But I just thought poor clock management. Towards the end, we were wasting timeouts earlier in the half, for not getting plays called at the right time and the play call. And with the play clock going on, I feel like we just missed out. We got to capitalize. Although Chad Henne did what he did, but still we had the ball. We wasted timeouts. We took too long getting plays in. Took too long getting on the getting set. I just feel like we could have improved on that. So, the game's coming up. The storyline looks good, Brady versus Rodgers, but I think, Green Bay, they play really well in Lambeau. And I think, a lot of that may have to do with temperatures. You got some Florida guys going up there now. They've been playing in Florida all year and going up there to play in 20-degree weather with some snow. But I think mostly, though, the weather may be the most impactful in the AFC Championship game. You got teams that like to throw the ball around. You can't really throw that well, and with that sense of urgency with the snow. And I think that's something that Josh Allen may have to improve on his accuracy, like he's been throughout the whole year. And hopefully, if Mahomes gets back, we know that he's well aware to make adjustments and coming out with the sense of urgency with his guys. Preparing for the weather and preparing for the the ball security issues with it being wet. And so I think it's just going to be a low kind of mid-scoring game, maybe your 20s, because Buffalo defense has been playing pretty well. So I think it might be like in the 20s kind of thing, but I think Green Bay is going to give it to the Buccaneers.
Yeah, you brought up some excellent points, and despite it being a pandemic and that kind of leveling the playing field, no pun intended, you make an excellent point that it doesn't matter when it comes down to cold weather versus warm weather climates and playing football. You know yourself as a football player, me as well, many years ago. What happens when you're out there in those cold weather situations, especially ball security. And if your prediction is right, Terry, which it seems to always be close to being right, I say that, as a compliment, not to be patronizing. You're right. It is going to end up being, if it's a low-scoring game, everything matters. Every possession matters. We saw what happened early in the game between the Chiefs and the Browns. And I hate to get on your Browns, but that early football fumble on the goal line, came back to really hurt them. And it's unfair, I think, to go back to a play at the beginning of the game, because a game is its totality. But you're right, it's those little things that matter. And I wonder if that gives people the edge. Patrick Mahomes has been a great leader for the Kansas City Chiefs, no doubt. And what does it do to the rest of the team that their great, fearless leader is incapacitated? Does it shake their confidence? You can say, oh, they can do more, but he's the wizard with that ball. Then you switch over, you talk about Tom Brady and Aaron, our guy, why am I drawing a blank on Aaron's name?
Rodgers. Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, my goodness, I should know better. But Aaron Rodgers, I guess my question to you is, who has more at stake in that game? Does Tom Brady have more at stake to continue his legacy, to be the actual GOAT, changing teams, saying he's like the Shaq and Kobe? He's like Kobe. I don't need Shaq. I don't need Belichick, Coach B, to win, But Aaron Rodgers has quietly been just, stomping down the record books, you know what I'm saying? So I wonder, what does the winner of that game, not only do they go on to the Super Bowl and potentially win the Super Bowl, adding to their programs, their organization's, Super Bowl history, a Lombardi trophy that is, who has more at stake for that game, you think, Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady?
I think Rodgers does. I think he has more to lose, and I think that Brady may be on the sense of more to win. Just because, Rodgers, you're playing at home. You have arguably the best receiver in the league with Devontae Adams. The defense, they're the number one scoring team in the league. You beat a great defensive team like the Rams. You're rolling. You're hot. Rodgers, I think, is on his way to winning an MVP award of the year. So I think that they have the most to lose, just because that everyone is predicting them to win. They've been on an incredible hot streak recently. And a lot of people are not really giving the Buccaneers a chance just because they had that Week 6 win, 38-10 over the Packers. But we all know the Packers, that's not the same team that we saw down there in Tampa. So I would say that Brady is going to have to face the odds again. A lot of people aren't giving him a chance. They do have Leonard Fournette, who's running the ball really well, to take some pressure off him. But I think guys like like Mike Evans, Gronk, they're going to have to step up for him and give him a chance, because, Brady is going to do all Brady can. Brady's going to be competitive. He's trying to prove that he can win without Belichick, like you said. And so I think he has the most to gain here getting back to the Super Bowl, and they're hosting it. If they win this game, they're going down to Tampa to host the Super Bowl. So I think it's a little motivation to that.
Yeah, it is. But we all know, Terry, and you know so well with your experience in sports, as well as me being a athlete and observer, you can't put the cart before the horse. Right. Buccaneers cannot go in there saying, hey, let's get ready to go play at home for the Super Bowl. You got to get there. And another thing, I give a shout out to one of my childhood friends who told me a long time ago, it's the offs, man, meaning that it's totally different between the regular season and the playoffs. And I've come to live by that. Like, I don't want to hear nothing about a regular season matchup.
Right.
Don't tell me what y'all did and how y'all beat somebody, because if you beat them in the regular season, I think you're actually at a disadvantage. Because walking in, I'll tell a quick story. When I was playing in the basketball league that's now defunct down in Detroit, and we had a team that we played, and they blew us out, Terry. They blew us out by like 30. I'm talking about one of those kind of blowouts, right? So we ended up still matching up with them in the championship game. When I tell you that they were so arrogant in the layup line, they were they did everything but put their name on the trophy. And we balled against those guys. We played hard basketball down to the wire, and we won. So from a psychological standpoint, I think that Brady may potentially have more pressure on him in the sense that everybody is saying, what are you going to do? But I think also Tom Brady has really showed to be unflappable, man. It's kind of like, what can you say if he loses? If they get blown out, can you really? Does that tarnish his legacy? And all he was going to do is add a feather in his cap. If he goes down there, he wins. And he goes on to win the Super Bowl. I mean, how many extra greats can you put behind his name? He's just great, you know. So I think that's something to see. And I know we're going to be tuned into. I want to stay with what we have going on here. Let's talk about what we have coming up next. Basically, you know, we talk about what's happening with football, and then we get to switch to, you know, basketball as well. And a number of things have been going on. One in particular is what's going on in Brooklyn. I mean, so much has happened in a short amount of time. First of all, let's talk about the fact that they lost. Better yet, let me shout out your guy, Colin Sexton, young bull. Give him his props. The same guy at Alabama when they played with 4 players on his court, and he led his team to a hard-fought game. And now he's playing in Cleveland, and he's kind of coming to his own. Tom Izzo made a comment a few weeks ago after the press conference. I remember asking him about Aaron Henry when Aaron had his breakout game. He had a career high. Tom made a really good point. He said, you know, he's doing what he's supposed to do, but we get this expectation that a kid is supposed to come in and just take over. And it takes guys 3 to 4 years. You use Morris Peterson as a comparison. I think the same thing is with Colin Sexton. I mean, my goodness, he's only, year 3 now, is it, or whatnot? Year 3, and he's playing like this, and I'm not one, but people would dare say, oh, it's about time. What do you mean? He's what, early 20s in the NBA, leading the program? So with that being said, I don't believe in the Brooklyn Nets experiment, and let me clarify that. Kevin Durant is one of my favorite players. James Harden, you gotta love him, and I love Kyrie. I'm a big Kyrie fan, and I'm also very conflicted when it comes to Kyrie Irving. I'll just get right to that. Kyrie Irving being out for that time, in my view, Kyrie is battling some mental health issues, and I say this respectfully. And why I finally can make that comment, Terry, why I finally can make that comment is after I saw him in a press conference, literally with his head down like this. And I don't think that he was doing that as a sign of disrespect to the media, even though he's pointed out that he doesn't necessarily care for them. I think the weight of this moment did not allow him, Terry, to have the confidence to stand erect, to sit there and be ready for whatever questions he was going to have. I think the weight of the moment is showing that he is battling challenges that all of us battle. But the disadvantage, I talked to one of my really good friends about this too before we got on today. The disadvantage, Terry, and I want to get your thoughts, is he's rich, so there's no empathy. But it doesn't mean because you're rich, you can't have that problem. So that's the bias and almost the punishment of being wealthy, in the sense that nobody cares that you have some of the same problems I have. But I think there's something to be said about that even being a $30 million man, a contract, you're getting $33 million a year, your endorsements and all that, you still can struggle with mental health issues. Now, to what degree, I don't know. He's talked about the things going on in the world bother him. They bother me too. But the difference is he's in the spotlight and he gets criticized. So what do you think about that?
I think that's a good point. I think a lot of people don't realize that although you may be at a higher status or at a higher platform, I mean, everyone's still human. I mean, there are things that bother me. There are things that bother you. But like you said with Kyrie, I mean, Kyrie's stuff is on the forefront. I mean, everything is in front of us. Like if Kyrie makes the wrong move, or say he needed time, like maybe he was going through a lot of things at home that he didn't want to bring to the forefront in the media this time. He's like, I needed some personal time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are things where it's hard to criticize that because, oh, he's making millions. I mean, but people still are like people. I mean, some people just need their time, refocus their mind and get back to playing. I mean, he had a great game last night, but I mean, the thing is with, I think he was high on emotions. They showed a video. They gave a tribute to him. And, with his time with the Cleveland Cavaliers after the first quarter. And I think, he was a little emotional. He did a little ring point to his ring finger, to give some respect to the Cavs, for winning that ring and him hitting that big shot. And I think he needs some help. I think, I say that respectfully too. I think, he just needs someone to, just hear him out. Like not as a basketball player, but as Kyrie Irving as a person. And personally, I don't really think that it'll work for a lot of reasons. Not one, you just have a lot of ISO players on one team. A lot of times when James Harden is in his ISO mode, you see Kyrie standing off, not really bringing something off the ball. And I mean, the Cavs, they're last in offensive rating. I mean, they're dead last. Mm-hmm. And they came out and scored 147 points. And, I mean, the bench scored 44. I mean, that just goes to say that when you lose a guy like Jared Allen who brings that defensive presence that the Nets definitely lacked, I was happy when the Cavs got him. I made a post on Facebook, and I was like, look, I don't care what y'all saying with James Harden. Cavs got Jared Allen and Prince, like with Torian Prince. So I was like, I'm happy about that. We see Allen balling out on his debut, Prince balling out. I mean, I like that. Colin Sexton is starting to fit in. They have a solid coach. I think they're starting to fit that stability and starting to put pieces around him with Bickerstaff, and that's key for a young guy that's still developing. But like I mentioned, Kyrie Irving, man, he's going to figure it out. But I think he needs to maybe put the pride aside and ask for help. And a lot of times people need help doing that.
Yeah, one thing I want to add about the Kyrie piece, too, that I think I saw a comment that many people aren't talking about. You know, when you talk about mental health issues and trauma and triggers, right. I think James Harden coming to the New Jersey Nets was a trigger. Excuse me, the Brooklyn Nets was a trigger for Kyrie. Because here's the thing. When did Kyrie go off the grid? Probably about a week before James Harden coming to the Nets was announced. I think it's fair to assume that was already in the pipeline. I think it's fair to assume that was already a discussion. I think it's fair to assume that you probably had a heads up and you knew about it. So what happens is now Kyrie is put in a position where you don't have any excuse not to win a championship.
Right.
You know, and this comes from the same player who's known for going to Boston and critiquing everything that's going there and finally kind of blowing that up. Same thing with the places he's been. So now what'd you go run to? Because, see, if he was able to talk about all those other things, it kind of took the attention off what he may have been going through. But now it's all on him. And, again, when he sat in that press conference, man, and he had his head down, a lot of people saw it as disrespect. I said, no, man, he's signaling to you that I can't even sit here and be a strong man physically in my presence because the weight of this is on me. And also told me that he wasn't confident in his response or what he had to say to the media. Because I think a confident person, you'll see it in their body language. I think his body language was the angle of it. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that situation. I'm going to do more with my platform to argue that the Kyrie Irvings need to be heard. And just because someone is wealthy, because here's the thing, man, when you and I become wealthy like that, whenever that day comes or come close to that, I want to say we're wealthy now because we have our family, we have our loved ones. You know, you still want to be able to get support. I don't want, you know, the fact that I'm in a category financially as separate from the rest of the population to allow me to lose my humanity. And I think what's happening is people's jealousy, their envy, or whatever it may be, they're using that to try to take away Kyrie Irving's humanity. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on what's going on with that. Please, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, just the one last thing to point out. I just thought about it. I think a lot of this might have to do with the absence of Kobe Bryant. And that was a guy that Kyrie Irving
would go
up to. And people had a problem with that. People were like, Kobe Bryant, why is he going to Kobe and not LeBron? You know, and a lot of people had a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with that. I'm like, if that's who you need to go to get the guidance that you need to be up to your mental state and your physical state, go ahead. And him losing Kobe the way that Kobe passed away, that may still be dreading on him. I mean, he was
one of the few players that walked off. He was one of the few players that when he heard Kobe die, he was like, I'm done.
Yep.
Which speaks to a level of fragility. Here's the thing. We look at someone like Kyrie Irving, and we cannot make the assumption that he's built mentally tough. And I don't say that as any slight. But you can't look at him and say that, oh, yeah, he has the mental fortitude. I mean, think about his past teammates.
Right.
That being Kevin Love. I've had a conversation with the general manager of the Cleveland Cavaliers who made a comment. Now, mind you, this was after Kyrie had left. But saying, how do I get someone like you to talk to my players without them thinking they're effed up? So this part about this whole stoicism and this mental strength that all these guys have is not the case, man. Because they're going through. I mean, Kyrie he got triggered way back when they went into the bubble.
Right.
You know, when he was like, should we even be playing and all these type of things. So it's something we got to keep an eye on. But I think it's something I'm definitely going to use my platform not only here but to continue to push for us being receptive to the fact that people do have mental health challenges, no matter what their occupation is. And unfortunately, if Kyrie was working at McDonald's, people wouldn't think nothing about him and what he's talking about. You know.
Exactly.
So we're moving along, man. Let's talk more basketball. We had a big game the other night. We had the Warriors versus Lakers. Basically, the Warriors came back from being down 19. This game was at home for the Lakers, which to me, at home on the road doesn't mean anything in the bubble world, if you ask me. No fans, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's the difference. But, what do you say about that? The Warriors coming back and LeBron also having the chance to win the game but missing the three-pointer. What do you think?
I think the Lakers, they're doing a pretty good job with the way that they're playing their stars. I mean, they're kind of implementing the load management. Like LeBron hasn't missed a game, but they're definitely taking his minutes down. I mean, I think he's at an all-time low in minutes right now, and he's still putting up some good numbers. And I think it's not even about numbers.
38 minutes that night, though.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but it's like LeBron at this point is like, stats are stats. I'm just playing my game. And my goal is to try and win more championships. And I think the biggest thing, like you mentioned with the last shot, I want to point out the play before the last shot. And this is something that LeBron really gets critiqued on in his game. And it's something that people may give Jordan a slight edge. And it comes down when LeBron's dribbling down, right? Curry misses a layup to kind of put them over the top and kind of, solidify or give them a better chance of winning the game. Curry misses. LeBron gets the rebound. He's down on the fast break. I think it's about like 8 to 10 seconds left. He comes down about like 8 seconds. He passes it. My thing is like, did they start passing around? I think it went to like Schroeder, then to Caruso, then AD, and then they almost turn it over, and then they got to call a timeout. My thing is like, LeBron, you gotta keep that. I mean, at this point, it's like you down 2. LeBron, you gotta keep that. You gotta, make something work. Either go in and get fouled or go in, absorb contact, and kick it out. You got to initiate it. Don't go passing. I don't know if he wasn't aware at the time, and that happens to everyone. But like those are the things where they're like, why is LeBron not taking the first initial shot? Because you don't want to give Golden State and Steve Kerr a chance to set up, prepare, put all eyes on Bron and AD, and leave everybody else in the corner like, oh, they're not shooting it out of the timeout. But like that's where you got the Warriors after a missed shot, scrambling in transition. That's where you just put your head down, get fouled, make the free throws, or dunk on somebody, or kick out to AD, something, initiate some kind of offense without having to call a timeout. And that's why they lost the game right there. They also took their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter. But I mean, that point right there, that's a winning time moment that Bron missed the chance of right there.
I got a few things to say that. You make excellent points. I got 2 LeBron stories. One being, I think this one LeBron was in Miami, and him and D-Wade, thick of thieves, they always hanging out. I think they were maybe they were in like Miami or they were maybe in Vegas or whatever it was. They had just played the Warriors, and they ran into Steph Curry like in the lobby somewhere. Cameras are on them, and they're having their candid conversation. But they were talking, and they were like, dude, what's up with that move you put on us? And he's like, oh, what's up with that? But then they said something, man, that gave me that showed me they had the ultimate respect for Steph Curry. They said, he said, well, why did y'all do that play? They said, why? Because we wasn't giving you the ball back. We are not giving you the ball back. And they said this years ago. Now, going back to this whole thing with LeBron passing up shots, I remember an All-Star game where LeBron passed up the last shot and they lost, and Kobe was looking at him like, what's up? That is just not his DNA, man. That's just not. And I think that even though LeBron has less years than what we've seen, we'll probably end up seeing him play with his son, Bronny. I think the story of him, we will always say, well, he was always one, he was different because he was always one to kind of pass up the last shot, looking for an opportunity to get people engaged. But I will say this. That was a regular season game. Talk about a 7-game series. LeBron gets that chance to get a look. He's going to hit that. He's going to win that. And I think he's going to have that. And I think the best thing that could have happened to the Los Angeles Lakers is they lost to the Warriors because it locks you in. Because them winning, even if it was alone on a LeBron shot, what do? You fall back and say, oh, yeah, we got this. We'll be fine. But now they know they can be beat. It is not to say they couldn't be beat, but that's just the difference between the regular season and the playoffs, man.
And with the game tonight against the Bucks, I don't know if they had the late game or they're playing at the first one at 7, but immediate bounce back. I mean, you got to get up, play, against Giannis and his guys coming in with Middleton on the wing. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are the games where, I wouldn't say you play your hardest, but I always say it's a gut check kind of game. It's like, where are we at as a team, January 21st. Where are we at as a team right now? Are we good? You know, are we like, you know, hitting our stride, or do we need to improve on this? So I think that's why you see a lot of headlines where they're like, what does this mean for the Bucks? What does it mean for the Lakers? Because I mean, the players think that same way too. I mean, this is a team that we may be contending, you know, playing for a title.
Yeah, coming out the East.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that they gotta wake up and play for.
No, you're right about that. And I think one thing we haven't witnessed yet, and maybe if it comes up, we can talk about it, you know, throughout the course of the NBA season. When are these guys going to hit that wall, Terry? A lot of these guys just came out for that bubble play, and because of the way the money was, they had to turn around and get ready to play again. When is that same rookie wall that the people like Paul Pierson used to talk about, that rookie wall when you go from being a college player to hitting that NBA, you know, back-to-back, you know, cross-country travel. Now, even though they're trying to minimize the travel based on COVID to allow you to do those, you know, one-on-ones at home, you know, you do them back-to-back. But, you know, we still got to talk about that bubble catching up with people from the summer, man, and what that did to their bodies to better go into this long season. But we'll see. It'll be something to watch. I think that this is the part. The NBA is entertainment in two forms. You got regular season entertainment because it's what could be. Then you got the playoffs, man, and it's totally different. Teams come to play in a different way. And to be honest, sometimes they'll give up a game like that. They'll drop a game referring to the Lakers, what they're working with, to see what matchups work, to see what they can try, or to turn around and say, okay, we got to have AD more involved at this point. So for me, and I'll be honest, as a Laker fan, as a LeBron fan, I'm not really worried about that. And I do like the fact that they were able to get a last shot out, which means they still had a chance to win.
Right.
So with that, man, we'll transition to college ball, man. We'll talk about Michigan State. There was an impromptu press conference put on by Coach Izzo on Monday. It was twofold. It was to recognize Dr. King, but it was also to kind of chew some of us media folks out a little bit because there was concern. Some people felt that Tom Izzo wasn't being forthcoming when it was announced that there were two players, David Smith and Marty Sadisco, and also it was Marty, and it was Steven Izzo who had contracted the coronavirus. And it wasn't until later that they said there was a third player. That third player ended up being Josh Langford. So a lot of media outlets, either directly or indirectly, were alluding to the Michigan State program withholding information. And that pissed Tom Izzo off. And I know Tom is on the show. He'll be joining us later. He knows the wrath that Tom Izzo can bring. And I just want to speak to that. Tom's main point was, name me a program in the country that gives you more access. Name me a program that's more transparent. You know, you name me a program. So he really took issue with the idea of people insinuating that he wasn't being forthcoming. And he explained that scenario of why Josh Langford wasn't named until later, because he basically said at 10 a.m. he took a COVID test and he tested negative. And he took one at like 3 in the afternoon and he tested positive. You know, it can go just like that. So it was interesting. But what I do want to share also is the comments that he made about the great Dr. Martin Luther King. He wanted to make a point to make sure that we were talking about that on this day. And what was so cool is that the comment really was able to fall along the lines of mental toughness, which is something that we always talk about. So give me a second and I'll share that with you and for all our listeners. Also, and shout out to the Streets of Talking Podcast Network, Don Houston and Clarence Babor doing major things, man. This podcast is being heard in Detroit, Chicago, Las Vegas, and even in Africa. That's right, Africa. And if Wakanda was a real place, we'll be plumping it there too. So let me share this with you guys. I only show the first 3 minutes.
Tom, I don't want to get ahead of your comments about what today, the significance of today is, but from a mental toughness standpoint, Dr. King talked about the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. Talk about your players, the three in particular, and what you've seen from them, or your son, Maddie, as a true freshman, especially Josh, who we know have carried the burden for so many times. What have you seen in them that has displayed mental toughness that's appropriate with who we're honoring today?
Well, I'm going to talk about that later, but I will answer your question now because I think it's apropos. I don't think there's any question about that. You do learn most about people when they're under some stress. And that's why I came and did this press conference. You know what? I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm comfortable in my players' skin. I'm with them side by side. I think they've handled it about as well as you can handle it. When you have a disappointment, like you cancel the Thursday game and then the Sunday game, and then you turn around and have to tell them that you're missing this Saturday's game too, but you really believe in your heart that it's both medically and in every other way. It's really strictly medically, and that's the only reason we're missing it. It's best. It's best for us, and it's best for Illinois. And those disappointments range. And when Aaron Henry and Rocket and Joey Hauser were the three guys that first thing they said is, "Can we shoot today?" I think that tells you a little bit about them. I tell Gabe Brown, he's like a drug addict only for basketball. If he doesn't shoot a day, I think he gets the shakes, and I said, Gabe, don't worry, I'll get you in the gym sometime if it's just me and you at midnight. And so I think they're handling it pretty well, but I think athletes are geared to not show any weakness, and that's what I worry about. And I tell my staff, we got to continuously call them, we got to spend time with them, we got to talk to them, we got to have the uncomfortable talk, as I've learned with all the racial issues we went through this summer. Talk about things that aren't comfortable, How are you really feeling? How's your mental health, How you feeling about this today? And I will get into that a little later if I could. But how do you feel about all the different things? Think when I tell you what I talk to our guys about Sunday, it's going to blow you away. But I will save that for the end. Thanks, Lindsay. Well, I did.
Yeah, Terry. We had an opportunity not only talk about Dr. King, and I'm really grateful that I can be consistent with my message of mental toughness and mental health. And to be honest, Dr. King was talking about mental toughness, talking about the true measure of man and where you stand in times of conflict. And it didn't hit me until that moment. So I really felt honored to be able to acknowledge him. I want to thank Tom Izzo and how he's staying out front with the Michigan State program and using the influence of this program to keep social justice in the forefront. I think he's doing an excellent job. And also, and it's not like Tom grew up, in the hood. It's not like he grew up in Cleveland, not like he grew up in Detroit. He grew up in the Upper Peninsula. If anybody don't know, that is a very a place that is not racially diverse. But yet and still, he comes down to Michigan State and he welcomes a very diverse program, and he has no problem speaking out. So what did you think about the comments that you just heard?
No, I thought, first I thought of it as a player and what it would feel like constantly missing out on games and, and not being able to compete and having to stay in your dorm or wherever you're staying at and making sure you're safe. But at the same time, it kind of sucks because these are games that MSU would probably like to win and help their tournament resume. Like I told you earlier in the week, I mean, right now they're about they got them listed as maybe 11th seed in the tournament. And I think that's something that they would like to improve on. And I think miss out on games like Indiana, Iowa, and Illinois, not so much Indiana, but they help that resume. I mean, Indiana might be that booster to give you that confidence to go play Illinois later in the week and keep that train rolling. So, I mean, these are games that you would like to have on your resume, saying that you beat Iowa, saying that you beat Illinois. But I think most importantly, he's understanding that it can kind of be disheartening to players, not being able to play and where they, kind of release that stress and that anxiety and just be, in a room and not really having much to do. And so, I mean, it's hard. I like how he's encouraging his staff to talk to players and, always, because that's the one thing that a player loves is, that's someone that's always going to look out for them, that's there for their best interest. And another thing, I'm just sick of the whole, the athlete always have to be mentally tough. Like kind of we mentioned with Kyrie, I forgot to mention it earlier, but I mean, athletes need someone to talk to. I mean, these athletes are on a forefront. I mean, Aaron Henry, Josh Langford, Gabe Brown, these guys all have a platform. And they're not always going to be at their 100%. And I think Izzo realizes that, and he wants to make sure that he's doing what he can to get these guys at their 100%. And then I really, my respect went even higher for him to even point that out, that he's willing to have those talks with his players. Understand. I think the biggest thing, though, he's getting, though, is that he may not have every answer. And that's one thing that's hard for a coach. I may not have every answer. I'll tell you what a zone is. I'll tell you what the play is. I'll tell you the defensive scheme. But for this one, I can just hear you out and let you rant and let you tell me how you feeling, and I'll do the best I can. And I think he's showing more empathy, letting him, just kind of vent and letting his staff allow the players to vent and kind of, understanding he's not going to have the answers for what it's like to be Black in America and what it's like to have all these things happening to them. And he's just going to have to be the understanding coach. And I think he's doing a really good job with that.
No, you're right. I mean, let's talk about the other part. It behooves him to make sure that his players feel good about where they are. He can't act as if he doesn't see what's going on. I mean, he was very open in him, how should I say, talking bad and speaking negatively of the Capitol riots that took place, and getting on and speaking negatively about that. I get that. And I just think that's part of the process. And, he's under some pressure too, man. I mean, it's kind of like typical Michigan State. You drop a few games early in the season.
Right.
You work to self-correct, and you get back on track. And I think that's still there. But this Big Ten they're playing in now, man, is something else. And I think that's a great transition for what we're going to talk about. We talk about Big Ten picks. But I want to shout out Tom Izzo on the Michigan State program, because I think it's hard, man. And it's hard for me as a Black man to be in those press conferences to not be able to have that kind of dialogue. And I thank Tom Izzo for being proactive in that. So it's not like you have to pull it out of him. He's ready to talk about it. He's ready to express himself about it. And he uses his bully pulpit to do it. And people have to fall in line. They got to write about it. They got to tweet about it, and these may be individuals who probably didn't want to do that or felt no need, but now they do because of that.
Right.
So with that, man, this 3-game postponement, we thought we were going to have Illinois on Saturday. It won't be. The next game is still up in the air. I mean, at this point, Tum Nairn was the graduate assistant I was referring to, and this is public information. He has a virus. Also, the strength and conditioning coach has it as well. So the question really becomes that if you're the next opponent up, do you want to play Michigan State? And I think that's going to be a question that has to be reconciled with both the medical staff and the coaching staff. And you can only hope that they can just take full advantage of what they're doing. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, man. So let's get ready to move. Again, I want to thank you, Terry, and what you've been doing, man. But let's get ready to bring our other guest in. And I don't want you two guys turning into Bloods and Crips, man. Where, y'all on the other side of issues, and me and Orlando got to step in between y'all. And I got to tell you to grab John. I got to grab you. You reaching for your pistol. John reaching for his knife. We don't need that, man. We want it to be peace out here. But you two are doing a great job with the Big Ten picks. I will say, just to keep the competition going, it seems that you may have, done very well for yourself. And because of that, John is coming to us in some scarlet red representing Ohio State. Because of how that went. John, how you doing, man? You're on mute right now. Let's get you off mute real quick. Orlando will get you off mute, and then we'll be set. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Orlando says I'm good to go.
You good to go, man? So,
yeah, but I got to take my head.
We're having a little audio difficulty. You're kind of going in and out right now. Hey, John, hold on for a sec. We're having a little audio difficulty. You're going in and out. We were hearing you for a second, then you went away. So let's see here. John, let's see if we can hear you right now. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's on mute again, Orlando. I don't know if his is on mute or whatnot. But Terry's my witness. You see him moving his mouth, don't you, Terry?
Yeah.
Let's try now, John. Let's see. Yeah, we're still having some issues. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Terry, did you get in there and mess up John's mic so he can't, best back? What's going on?
No, I'm all fair. I'm all fair fight. I'm for off. I win fair and square.
I'm sure Orlando's probably checking on it. And John, what you can do is you can say test 1, 2, 3. If we hear you, we'll acknowledge that. But right now, we see you. We definitely see you looking great, but we just can't hear you. So while Orlando is working on that, try one more time, John. Yeah, I mean, unless he's being a mime, he's just trying to just talk. We can't see that. So we'll hold tight for a second. We'll work on that, and we'll talk about that. With the time we have, let's do a recap on last week, Terry. Do you remember what the setups were?
So the first one was the divisional games. I talked about how Aaron Rodgers going against the number one scoring defensive team in the NFL with the Rams, and watching that game, I mean, everyone's intrigued with the whole Jalen Ramsey versus Rodgers kind of game, but Rodgers was too much. He is too much.
Yeah, you think so? We'll go try and see if we got John again. John, you want to give it a try one more time?
I'm here.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna have to backtrack. Then I gotta take my hat off to Terry, and so I wore scarlet and gray today. But just remember one thing, there, young man. I've been around, and I don't stop coming.
Yeah,
I keep coming with it.
The good thing
day
is,
in and day out.
If you would have came and just did 1 week with us and decided to move on, at least we got you locked in. Like, no, I got to come back. I got to go ahead and redeem myself with Terry. No, we love it, man. We love it. We know it's going to go both ways. So I'll mention the matchups that we're going to talk about, John, and then we can go into that. Is that okay for you?
Yeah, I have a question for you first, though.
Sure, no problem.
I was watching – I watch a lot of basketball, and I was watching Tennessee and Florida the other night.
Okay.
And Tennessee had just got ranked 6th and the powerhouse in the Southeast Conference, and they proceeded to get beat by 26. And I'm seeing this more often, and I'm asking you, in your experience in dealing with athletes, I know the COVID's part of it. I know it's put us in a different place. And is there something else? Is it all this information that these young people have to deal with, is it interfering? This was on ESPN primetime.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys at halftime, Seth Greenberg says, it would be nice if you just stayed in front of the guy a little bit. I mean,
yeah, real simple.
You just wonder what's going on with these.
I think that information overload does play a role. You got to talk about some programs, John. These kids haven't been home since July. So they're in a bubble. I think the idea of what we've normally seen in past seasons, and Terry has seen this as well, where you can get into a certain groove and now it's different. You're playing and practicing in a place where no fans, or little to no fans, and if so, there's so many limitations. So I think what you're going to see very similar, and I think the Big Ten is probably the best example, even though they're like the strongest conference in basketball. It's going to be so much parity. It's going to be up and down. You don't know who you're dealing with night in, night out. And you know what? There's a very good chance, John, that this may not be just a post-COVID thing. This may be where we are going. And you may mention about the information overload with the technology and all the things that things are looking at. Yeah, these kids are living for likes, man. And when you're living for likes, it's a different kind of motivation.
I had 2 coaches that I had the privilege of coaching with. Vernon Payne was one of them. And Vernon used to always say, is he a wanting guy or is he a willing guy?
Oh.
Does he want this? Or is he just willing to do it?
Oh, wow.
What kind of player is he? He say you have to make that determination when you're watching this kid, whether you're going to recruit him or not. And then I had another guy, Joe Zabrinsky, I coached with. They used to scream all day long, be here now.
Be present in the moment.
I feel for these kids not being home and everybody's world being changed. And then with what's going on, I mean, it just seems to me that it's tougher than ever for these young people to be consistent in the game of basketball. And, it's so public. Your performances are so public.
Yeah.
Putting yourself out there.
John, you make an interesting point with that. And I think the one thing I can say about that is they're okay with it because that's just how they are now. And they figure I got so much time ahead of me, I can get this game back. I can get this opportunity back. we all come from a generation of playing where you're right, you are present. But there's no real desire to have to be present when you can be away, meaning as soon as I can reach for my phone, I could go to a different place. As soon as I get some, responses on social media, I can go to a different place. So there's so many opportunities for you to not be there. Let's talk about how we grew up playing on that one rim or that milk crate, and that was it. There was no PS4, PlayStation, no, you know what I'm saying? There was no, I'm gonna go hang out and do something. It was like this was it, sun up to sundown. So I think what we're seeing is our young people benefiting from what we've created. We're part of that. We've created something for them. John, you have, Terry has. We're seeing them benefit from it, and they just have a different perspective. And there may be something that, hey, because I got it easy or it's right here for me, that's it. So that's a great question, John. And what I want to make sure is that we can get in a Big Ten take so you can get your money back from Terry. I saw Terry send that wire.
I'm ready to roll. I'm ready for him.
I saw him send that wire transfer over to you, so we want to make sure that's straight. So what I'll do is I'll go into who we're going to talk about. And for the sake of time, how about that, John? I'll just refer to you off the top. So we're going to talk about Indiana at Iowa first. Then we're going to do Michigan at Purdue, Maryland at Minnesota Saturday, Ohio State at Wisconsin, and Sunday Rutgers at Indiana. So for the first one, let's talk about Indiana at Iowa. That's going to take place. What's your take on that one, John?
Well, first of all, Indiana has a tough time scoring. Tracy Jackson Davis has taken like 80, 90 shots more than the second guy that's taken the most shots. And he's the one that he averages 20 points a game, but they have trouble scoring. They don't shoot the ball well. They have been defending well. But I had a conversation with a guy in Las Vegas, and the over and under, he liked the over and under was 152. He loved the over in this game. So I like Iowa to cover. Iowa is 7-0 against the spread in the last 7 games. This series has gone 13 of the last 16 have gone over. So I like Iowa to win the game, and I like the over 152 points.
Okay, you got Iowa to win. What do you think about that, Terry?
I'm with them on that one. I think Iowa. A cool stat I found out. Iowa has 6 guys shooting above 40% from 3.
Wow.
And, that right there is like, if one guy's off, I know one of the other 5 is going to make them for me. So, you got a lot of options. They're still number 1 in scoring offensively in the Big Ten. So, I think that they're going to, with a team like Indiana who struggles to score, can they keep up with them? And I think the answer to that is no, and I got Iowa.
Okay, so we got both of you guys agreeing with that. We got to push on that one. That's great. Let's switch back to you, Terry. I'll put you up on the clock for Michigan at Purdue. Michigan at Purdue. And Michigan has been on fire after that loss to Minnesota. They came back with a big win just recently. I forget who they went up against. Maryland, big win on Maryland. So what do you have for that, Terry, Michigan at Purdue?
This one was a tough one. I was kind of headed back and forth because Michigan is top 3 in scoring and opponent points per game. And, there's just one thing that I think Purdue can do well, and I think defend well in the front court. And I say that because, with Dickinson and Livers and Wagner, they score really well. But I think the backcourt with Brooks, and he brings a lot. And I think with Brooks and Smith in the backcourt, they don't really score. And I think Purdue is going to do a great job of forcing them to make plays and score. But I'm switching my decision right now, and I think Michigan's going to do it just because I don't think they can stop Livers.
Is that an emotional decision? You had to switch right there on the spot, Terry?
Yeah, I was thinking Purdue, but I don't think Purdue is that consistent to keep up with Michigan. And I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be a great game, wire-to-wire kind of game, but I think Michigan's going to pull it out.
Okay, John, what are you thinking?
Well, the interesting thing in this game is how in Vegas the line has changed over the last 3 days. It's gone from 5.5 to last time I checked, just before we came on, it went to 2.5.
What's influencing that, John?
Well, money being bet. Okay, money being bet. On on Michigan or on Purdue, and they wanted more money on Michigan, so they lowered it a little bit. But everybody agrees that this is probably going to be a nail biter. Michigan is favored by 2.5. Again, the best bet everybody seems to think is the over is 137.5, and people agree that it's going to be an over. I think Williams is going to give Dickerson all he can handle. I think he's going to take him out a few steps. I think Dickerson, I think the scouting and everything has caught up with him a little bit. I don't think he's been quite the same player the last 2 games. And Purdue has that 7'4" young boy that can give them a little depth because it's a lot to put on Williams' shoulder. Now, Purdue doesn't shoot the 3 well. They don't. You have the one kid, Stojanovic, that can shoot it good. But I agree with Terry. I think Michigan wins the game. I think it's very close, and I think that they will break and go over the 137.5.
Okay, so we got both of you guys. I'll say this quickly. That Hunter Dickerson, man, the disadvantage of his success is that he's on everyone's scouting report now. When I first saw him early in the season play, I said, who is this guy? Is he really the real deal? And then when I got the backstory, shout out to my guy Mike Jones, coach at DeMatha High School. He succeeded the great Coach Wooten. He and I worked together with USA Basketball. This Hunter Dickerson is the real deal. If it wasn't for the COVID, he would have been an all-time winningest player at the historic DeMatha High School. He was like 6 games away.
Right.
So he's been getting down since his freshman year. I think he's the real deal. I think there's really not going to be an answer for him going forward. And just me having the ties to Michigan State, I got to feel they're going to have to activate Julius Marble when they end up playing. Like, who's going to take on this big right here?
Well, so, one thing that surprised me when I looked at the stats was how few assists Dickerson gets. He hasn't learned that part of his game yet. He's not even averaging.
Getting back out.
And as you get double teamed and you get different defenses of what angle they guard you, the entry pass, do I guard him on the top? Do I stand on his left shoulder? He's got to learn how to do things that he hasn't had to do before.
And I'm willing to bet, and it'd be great that we check back in on this later in the season, that he's going to pick that up from Juwan Howard, who's probably told him this is going to come. Now that they're on you now that you're kind of on everybody's radar, you got to work on these things. So in the interest of time, we'll move on. So we got a push with you guys on that too. You both going with Michigan, right?
Yep.
So both with Iowa, both with Michigan. Okay. Maryland at Minnesota. I'll go to you, John, on that one. Maryland at Minnesota. What do you think about that?
I'm going with Minnesota and Marcus Carr. I don't think Maryland has enough for them. I like Carr. I like Robbins, especially at home. They have against the spread. They've been undefeated at home. They've played really well at home, and I think Minnesota's got too much for them. Okay,
Minnesota, yeah, and they just had that big win over Michigan, so that was a huge confidence booster. I don't care what you say, you hold on to those things. Terry, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree as well. Not too many to disagree about that. I mean, they're 11-0 at home right now, and one thing that I noticed, I mean, Carr is he's great on the offensive end, but like you mentioned, defensively, teams don't shoot well at the barn for some reason. Like they don't shoot well at all. And then
maybe it's that elevated court, John. Is that because they got to step up on that court?
Yeah, and it's the background too. It's more of a deeper background there.
Oh, yeah.
Than a closed-in stadium where they layer the tiers.
Yeah, so it's that depth perception. I remember being at Dallas and playing in a charity game with nobody. It was like a bubble. And, man, it is easier said than done to shoot a basket with nobody in the back because you cannot make all you see is a little rim like this. And people don't get it. When you have
to your point, the lowest percentage shot in basketball is from the baseline about 12 to 14 feet out inside is the lowest percentage shot, and it's got to do with the perception, the background.
Yeah, and what you see. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Oh, we're doing good. On you, Terry, what you got? Do we agree to that? We on the same one now?
Yep.
Okay, good. So now we're going to go and talk about Ohio State and Wisconsin. I'll go to you, Terry. You can start with that. And, John, you'll finish us up with Rutgers and Indiana after this. But go ahead.
I got you.
Ohio State and Wisconsin for you, Terry. What are you thinking?
This one, I think.
Wait a minute, John. Why would I ask Terry who he's going with?
Well, I don't know why.
I mean, with this one,
you know
what? I gotta put the objective hat on and really think about this one. And I think the biggest thing for me has really hurt the Buckeyes over the years of me watching them play, missing C.J. Walker. I mean, C.J. Walker is a great point guard for them. He distributes the ball. He allows Dwayne Washington Jr. to play off the ball. And I think that's something that can add another level to his game because now Washington Jr. has to create. And I don't think he does a very great job at it compared to Walker. He's doing he's playing really well. I can't sit up here and say he's not doing a good job at all, but Walker adds him to allow him to play off the ball and get his shots. So I like the Badgers in this one just because of I don't think that Ohio State is going to be able to create enough offense against Wisconsin. They play really good team defense, like we mentioned a couple weeks ago. They play like one as one team, one sound, one movement. They shift really well. Rotations are always crisp for them. But I think the only chance Ohio State wins in this one, I believe, is if they speed them up. They shoot really well. Lydell has to have another great game. Young has to do what he can with the boards. But I think the Badgers are going to win this one, and it's at Wisconsin. I think they shoot really well at home, especially from three. So I like the Badgers in this one. Yeah,
very good. We got the Badgers. So you cannot say that Terry has blind loyalty, John. He went against his Ohio State Buckeyes for the objective pick. So what do you think on that one?
Well, I agree with Terry. I'm taking Wisconsin too. I wondered when it was going to catch up with Ohio State losing the guard Walker, and I don't think that they have enough to go into Wisconsin and beat Wisconsin. They still smell the being in the hunt, Wisconsin, and I think they'll beat Ohio State.
Very good. So this last one, for the sake of time, because we want to be able to make sure that we have a good, solid performance on our Streets of Talking podcast. Now, where I ask you guys to be brief for your take on Rutgers versus Indiana. I'll start with you, John.
I like Indiana. They're at home. They play enough defense. I think that the under is the bet, and I like Indiana.
Okay, wonderful. What do you got, Terry?
I think, at Indiana, them being at home, I think is definitely an advantage, because that's your home floor. Rutgers has lost 4 straight games. It can easily be 5, and it can easily be a turnaround for them if you fall back into the mental trap of losing 4 straight. It can bring you down a little bit, but I think Ron Harper Jr. is going to allow them to bounce back, and I think Rutgers is going to speed them up. They play really good defense. I think creating some scoring runs has been kind of a struggle for them, and I think that my only disagreement for tonight, I think Rutgers gets that win.
Okay. So in the interest of time, we're going to wrap things up. I want to thank you guys for being on the SPS Edge Show. I want to thank the Streets of Talking podcast network, being heard all throughout the world, and thank Orlando, our great engineer, for putting these together. And John, the basketball insider, you are always awesome. I'm hoping this is going to work out with you and Terry. I don't want to have to break things up. My co-host, Terry McCord Jr. So this is Lindsey Hudson with SPS. I want to thank you guys, and we'll catch you next time on the SPS Edge podcast.